Blender 4.2 introduces a new concept called extensions. So this video is meant as a definitive guide to making sense of these changes. Before we get into it, I want to mention CGDive's add-on directory, which helps you discover cool Blender resources. Check it out on addons.cgdive.com. A couple of weeks ago, I made an early reaction video to the extensions when 4.2 was still in alpha, and I did not like the initial implementation. I'm not sure if the developers listened to my feedback or they just had the same ideas, but a lot of what I proposed was actually implemented. So now I quite like what I see in Blender 4.2. So let's take a look. I'm going to go to Edit, Preferences, and just so that you see things better, I'm going to increase the resolution. And if you're familiar with the Preferences window, you'll notice some differences. We have a new Get Extensions tab. The add-ons is still where it used to be, but the interface is slightly different. And then we have themes, which haven't changed much, but their position in the preferences was changed. This is because themes are also related to extensions. So extensions are an overarching term for things that extend Blender, and they currently include add-ons and themes. In the future, it is expected that keymaps and assets will also become part of the extensions. Before we take a deeper look into extensions, let's go back to the add-ons and see what changed. As you can see, there are 13 pre-installed add-ons now, whereas until Blender 4.1, we had about 100 pre-installed add-ons. So probably one of the first things that you'll ask yourself when you get started with Blender 4.2 will be, where is my favorite pre-installed add-on? For that, let's go to extensions. And so the easiest way to get these add-ons that you're used to is to allow online access. I know some of you don't want to do that, or you're unable to. We'll cover this as well. But for now, I'll allow online access. And that will automatically connect to Blender's official extensions platform. And it will give us access to a bunch of add-ons as well as themes. My focus in this video will be on add-ons, so I'll switch back to add-ons. And now I can just search for some of my favorite add-ons, such as F2, click install. And then if I go to add-ons, the F2 add-on will be installed and activated. I also like loop tools. I also always enable Node Wrangler and Readify, which are so-called core add-ons. You don't need to download them through the extensions, they will come with Blender. So I'll enable them. In this list, you should find all, or at least most, of the pre-installed add-ons that we had until Blender 4.2. And on top of that, you'll find additional add-ons. These add-ons come from the so-called extensions platform, which you can easily find if you click on this triangle here and click Visit Extensions Platform. And that will take you to extensions.blender.org. From here, you can click on add-ons, and you'll find the same add-ons that you find on this list, but now they have nice preview images, and if you click on any of them, you can find a description, additional compatibility information, important links, and so on. From here, you actually have another way to install these add-ons. I can click on Get Add-on, and then drag and drop into Blender. And that is exactly what you can do. Click and hold on this button and drag it into Blender. It will ask you to confirm if you really want to install this extension and enable it. I'll press OK, go to add-ons, and I'll have this new add-on installed and enabled. Yet another way to install these official extensions is again to go to extensions.blender.org. Go to add-ons, find an add-on that you're interested in. Again, click on Get Add-on, but now instead of drag and dropping, you can click on Download. And that will download a zip file that you'll be able to install similarly to previous versions of Blender. Again, what I need to do is go to this triangle and click Install from Disk. This is the add-on that I downloaded. I'm going to double click it, and it will be installed and activated. By the way, we have the same Install from Disk button here under add-ons, and I believe both do exactly the same thing. So this manual download and install process is what you would do if you don't want to allow internet access in Blender. By the way, if you go to System, this is the option that gets enabled when we clicked Allow Internet Access in the Extensions tab. So if you want to disable it again, you can untick this setting from System. And I guess the question may arise, if I don't have internet access, then how do I download these extensions? Well, how did you download Blender? Basically, what you need to do is download your favorite extensions or add-ons and store them locally. But some of you may say, this is a lot more complicated than it used to be. Well, here is a solution which is almost as simple as before. For now, you have to go to the official release notes for 4.2. Scroll down, and around the bottom, you'll find a bundle of add-ons that shipped with Blender 4.1, and it is available for download. Just click on download, and after a second, a zip file will be downloaded. For this segment, I have reset Blender 4.2 to defaults, and I'll just click away here and go to Edit Preferences, Get Extensions, Install from Disk. I'll go to the Legacy Bundle zip file and install it. This will take a couple of seconds, but now under Add-ons, you'll have all of the add-ons that were bundled with Blender 4.1. All of them will be enabled, so you may want to disable the ones that you don't need. Now let's take a look at themes as well. I'll go to Extensions and switch to Themes, and I'll be able to choose from a bunch of themes. And just like add-ons, I can press Install, and the theme that I just installed will be automatically applied. I'm not sure if I like this automatic switching, but anyway, this is what we get for now. I'll switch to my default theme. The exact same workflow that we saw with add-ons applies to themes as well. On the Extensions platform, I can go to Themes. I'll be able to see previews of all of the themes. I can select any of them. I can drag and drop them into Blender and install them this way. I'll switch back to the default. I can also download the theme and install it manually, again by going to Extensions and Install from Disk. Because extensions are now standardized, we install add-ons and themes from the same button. And let's cover another common question that you'll likely have, and that is, what if I have an old add-on that doesn't use the new extensions standard? It is surprisingly easy. Again, you go to Install from Disk. And now I'll go to a folder where I have one of our add-ons, Game Rig Tools, and I'm going to install the 4.1 version. Go to Add-ons, and the add-on will be highlighted and activated. So it worked, but here are some notes. In general, old add-ons may not work with the newest Blender version. This has nothing to do with 4.2 in particular. It's just that the Blender developers are always updating the API, so add-ons often break in a new Blender version. And for Game Rig Tools in particular, while I was able to install the 4.1 version in 4.2, please wait for the official 4.2 update, because I cannot guarantee that all features will work. Now I'll focus on the individual UI elements just to make sure we are not missing anything. So we have a search field. If you want to search for specific add-ons by name, we have the enabled only option, which will only display add-ons that are currently enabled. We have tags, which are basically categories, and buttons to enable or disable all categories. So if I disable all, I can then easily focus on a specific category such as animation. And then in the corner, we have Install from Disk, which we already saw. I kind of wish that it would be a button right here. I'm not sure why it is not exposed in the main interface. And we also have Refresh Local, which is not something that most people would use. Under Get Extensions, again, we have a search field. We have a filter for add-ons and themes. We have categories, which work exactly the same way as in the add-ons. And then we have repositories, and theoretically, you can set up your own repository. I kind of hoped I would be able to just download some extension zip files, place them in a local directory, and that way create my own repository. But it turns out it is a lot more complex and technical. So for now, I'll just be using the official extensions repository. And in the future, we'll most likely see other official or semi-official repositories such as Blender Market, GitHub, and so on. But here you'll be able to create your own repository, a remote or a local one, delete them with the minus sign, check for updates and download updates. And in the corner, we have a link to the extensions platform, refresh buttons, which means looking for updates, install available updates. I'm going to talk about updates in a second, and install from disk, which we already used earlier in the video. So now let's talk about updating add-ons. As you saw, we can still install the old style add-ons, which are not extensions. And we can also install extensions from disk using this button. And for add-ons that you installed this way, you'll need to update them in the old fashion, which means remove the add-on. The add-ons have uninstall buttons, so you need to uninstall the add-on, ideally close Blender, open Blender again, and install the new version of the add-on. But with extensions, we have a new update button. So to update a specific add-on, you just press on the individual update button. Wait a second, and now F2 has been updated. Or I can go to repository, select the repository which add-ons I want to update, and press this button, which is install available updates. Or in the corner, we have install available updates as well, which I believe updates everything. So I'm going to press this. Wait a second, and now all of my add-ons have been updated. Blender has this feature to import your preferences and also add-ons and themes and so on from your previous version. This is generally only available the first time you start a brand new version of Blender. Your splash screen will look like this, and you'll have this button to import the preferences from the previous version. So you can do this, and I'm going to give it a try now. So here it is, it's done. And if I go under add-ons, you'll see that I have Autoric Pro, for example, and a bunch of other add-ons such as the Mixamo add-on for Blender 4. And so the transition from 4.1 to 4.2 was successful. All of my previous add-ons were installed as old style add-ons. So there will be no specific problem with bringing your old add-ons from 4.1 to 4.2. However, I have to say that I don't recommend using this feature. I know many people like it because it tends to work, and it is a nice, quick and lazy way to bring your favorite settings when you download a new Blender version. But when you keep doing this version after version, small errors and problems may pile up because all sorts of small and big things change internally in Blender. So I had the experience where I kept re-importing my settings for 5 or 6 versions or so, and eventually my Blender became completely unusable. So what I do now is I manually initialize Blender every time I get a new version. I go through the preferences, I change them to my favorites, and then I manually get the latest versions of my favorite add-ons and install them. I believe this video answers most, if not all, questions about extensions and add-ons. But if I've missed anything, please leave a comment. It took me a couple of days to learn everything there is about extensions and compress it for you to a 10-minute video. So please like, subscribe, and check out our other projects. Advanced courses on academy.cgdive.com and Blender resource directory on addons.cgdive.com.